I want to talk about the manifestation, this wonderful, wonderful world that we become aware of, that we observe every day. Even though the manifestation exists in duality, it's still part of the whole and shouldn't be dismissed. What is it? What is it? Somebody asked the other day, what causes the manifestation? What causes us to have this beautiful world that we observe? And my answer to that is love unfolding. And of course, that may be a simplistic answer. And what does that mean? How does that work? And of course, you need to look at that from both a relative and an absolute standpoint. The important thing that I always tell people is always remember that you are not a thing. A noun, defined by the dictionary, is a person, place, or thing. And you're not a thing. To think of yourself as a thing in any way is to limit yourself to an idea. So I think of love as not as a noun, but as a verb, as the being verb. I remember in school I was always fascinated by the language of the verb, the being verb, being. Then that's a beautiful thing, being. Just being. It's a thing that is so important, and yet it's so simple because it's what you are. And that's something that I've always wanted to get across, was the idea that you're not a noun, you're a verb. And of course, that's very limited by language, but that's what it is. The mind conjures up so many things like the self, and then you have the small self, which is the personal self, the small s self. And then you've got the capital S self, which is the self you become, the self. But these are things, you sort of become this thing, and then you become a super thing, the self. And the mind, being a thing itself, wants to engage in the idea that it's going to become a thing. It wants to remain a thing, but it's not. And this is really where the point comes, where you can break through this idea of who you are, because you're not a who. You're a movement. You're this flowing love. That's all you are. There's and again, the idea of the soul. What is a soul? But a thing, a beautiful thing, a beautiful concept. The self and the larger self, also a beautiful, beautiful concepts. And when one is in the stage of bhakti and devotion, these are beautiful concepts to contemplate. But they hold you in the eye. Because a really important thing is there's really nothing you can do to affect the manifestation. You are body-mind, part of the manifestation. And it's like a flow of love is like an electrical circuit. It needs to be complete to be functional. It needs to be complete for there to be that flow, that movement, that unfolding. And in order to uncover what it is you really are. And that's what you need to think about, what it is. The mind has a difficult time with that. It can think things. It can think self. It can think super self. It can think soul. All of these things appear in the mind. But what it is that movement between, that unfolding. And knowing that that's what you are, understanding that that's what you are, is the removal of that separation. You can look at the manifestation and you can see God. And you can realize that that which sees out of this body-mind is the same as what you're seeing. It's the same as God. But the mind is still saying God, me, seeing God, instead of just seeing. There is just seeing. And when it comes to God, there is just loving. And then you realize that God is a concept, just as you are a concept. Your whole story is a concept. But that love, that verb, is still there. And this is what you are. And it's important. It's a concept, but it's an important concept because it's so important to understand that your presence is required. Now, they say often in particularly Neo-Advaita circles that there is no practice, but the practice is presence. Presence is so important, and this is all that's required of you, just to be there. But to be there in a way that excludes all else, particularly your mind and all that you imagine yourself to be, all of the manifestation is there for you. It's available to you, and it's available to you all the time. And it's a reflection, just as you're a reflection of the real. The real. And the real is this unfolding love. There's no need for the manifestation to be created. No real cause and no real need for it. It just happens because this is what love is about. This is what the Absolute is about. It's nothingness in terms of thing. There's no thing involved. But there's unfolding, constant, continuous unfolding, and it's a very, very active stillness. And it's something that comes about when you realize that you're not a noun. You're not a thing. You're unfolding. And all you need to understand the unfolding is to let yourself be aware. You are